American infrastructure, for generations, it was this incredible engine for our economy, a real source of national pride. But today, the systems we rely on every single day, our roads, our power grids, our water pipes, they're at a breaking point. What was once our biggest advantage has become, as one expert put it, a genuine embarrassment. So let's go on a journey through time and figure out how we ended up here.
Let's just start with this one massive number, $2.59 trillion. Wow. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, that's the estimated investment gap we're facing over the next 10 years. And that's just to get what we already have back into decent shape. It's a staggering figure, and it really points to decades of just not keeping up.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. How on earth did we get here? And to answer that, we've got to rewind the clock. Back to a time when America didn't just build stuff, it built these incredible monuments to its own ambition. To really get what's happening now, we have to look back at America's ambitious foundation. I mean, this was a time when the nation's identity was literally being forged in steel and concrete, creating the very engine that powered its growth for a whole century. Now, what's so interesting about this quote is the spirit it captures. The Hoover Dam, the Bay Bridge, come on, these weren't just construction jobs. They were national missions. They were these huge symbols of what a unified country could pull off, getting everyone, public and private, behind a common goal. And you can really see this ambition play out in these big waves, these distinct eras. It starts way back in the 1770s with the Canal Era, opening up the country. Then, boom, the 1830s, you get the railroads stitching the continent together. The New Deal in the 30s gives us those iconic megaprojects. And of course, the 1950s brings the interstate highway system, which just completely changed everything. Each phase was a building block for the next, fueling all this progress.
And this really gets to the heart of how they were thinking back then. President Eisenhower didn't just see roads and bridges. No way. He saw a system that was absolutely vital for moving goods to power the economy and, this is key, a network that was essential for moving troops and evacuating cities for national security. Infrastructure was national readiness.
But after those golden years of building, the narrative really started to shift. That intense focus on big, ambitious, forward-looking projects began to fade, and that led to what you can only really call a legacy of neglect.
It's like we just kind of forgot what made us so successful in the first place. That sense of national purpose, that commitment to investing for the long haul, it all just started to fizzle out. And we've been feeling the consequences of that shift for decades now. Just look at this chart. I mean, it tells the whole story more clearly than I ever could. Federal spending on infrastructure as a piece of the pie peaked right when the highway system was being built, and then it just started a long, slow, steady slide down. By 2017, it hit its lowest point in over 60 years. We just flat out stopped making it a priority.
So, here's the crucial point. This isn't just some abstract number on a chart. It has very real-world consequences. The average age of our public stuff has just skyrocketed. Our waterworks, on average, almost 50 years old. Our power grid is hitting 40. What this all means is that we have this massive and growing backlog of maintenance we've put off. We've basically been kicking the can down a very long and very bumpy road.
Okay, so all of this brings us to today. And the bill for all those decades of neglect, well, it's finally come due. The report card is in, and let's just say it's not one you'd be proud to bring home. C-. I mean, seriously. That was the overall grade the American Society of Civil Engineers gave U.S. infrastructure in 2021. And here's the real kicker. That's actually the highest grade it's gotten in 20 years. It's a pretty stark reminder that even when we're doing our best, we're still barely passing. And in a lot of key areas, we are just plain failing. And when you start digging into the details, it gets even worse. This isn't just one problem area, it's systemic. Our roads get a D. Transit gets a D-. Aviation, a D+. And even with a C for bridges, the report found that 1 in every 3 needs to be repaired or replaced. This is a crisis across the board.
So you might be wondering, how are we doing compared to everyone else? Well, this chart, it's not a pretty picture. The U.S. invests a much smaller slice of its economic pie in infrastructure compared to a lot of other wealthy nations. So while they're out there building for the future, we've been struggling just to maintain the past.
So why should you care about all this? Well, because bad infrastructure costs you money, real money, $3,300.
That's the estimated cost to the average American household every single year because of these problems, from wasted time and gas in traffic to car repairs from hitting potholes. That's money coming straight out of your pocket.
Okay, so faced with these terrible grades and rising costs, there has, finally, been a big push to try and turn things around. A new chapter of investment has begun as a direct response to this whole crisis. So in late 2021, Washington took a really major step with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It is the largest federal investment in infrastructure in decades, a direct shot at tackling that nearly $2.6 trillion funding gap we talked about at the beginning.
And you can see the funding is pretty comprehensive. The biggest slice of the pie, about $500 billion, is going to what you'd expect: surface transportation, our roads and bridges. But there are also these huge investments to modernize the electric grid, improve water quality, and build up our resilience against new threats like cyber attacks and climate change.
But here's the catch, right? It's not enough to just patch up the old stuff. We're not building for the 20th century anymore. The challenges we're facing today demand a totally new way of thinking about what infrastructure even is and what we need it to do.
Just take a look at this comparison. It really shows you how the game has completely changed. Back in the 20th century, it was all about physical mobility, cars and trains. Today, digital connectivity is just as vital. We used to build everything assuming the climate was stable. Now we have to build for resilience against crazy weather. We're moving from old analog systems to ones that need ironclad cybersecurity. And the goal isn't just growth anymore. It's about equitable growth that benefits every community.
And believe it or not, the next massive infrastructure build-out is already here. We're talking about AI, the data centers, the cooling systems, the insane amounts of bandwidth. This is the new railroad, the new highway system. It's absolutely essential for our future economic growth, but man, it is incredibly complex and expensive. And it raises all sorts of new questions about how we build it and who it's really for. Which leaves us with this final question to think about. A century ago, America made these incredibly bold investments that paid off for generations. Today, we're finally making the first significant down payment in a long, long time. So the question is, will it be enough? Will it be enough to overcome this legacy of neglect and build a foundation that's resilient, equitable, and advanced enough for the next 100 years?